that food flag narrative that I try to put out there, it means that when I'm repping collard greens, when I'm repping fried chicken, it's the flag that was passed down to me by my grandmother and her mother and her mother, her mother, her mother before her. And I want you to understand what those colors in my flag mean to me versus what the colors in your flag mean to you. We can have the same colors in both of our flags, but they might mean completely different things.
I went to Colonial Williamsburg to talk to author and culinary historian Michael Twitty. Michael tells stories about his family, about food, politics, and ultimately about the state of our country. He wants us to understand how food connects us, but also the pain, politics, and joy behind so much of the food that we eat without thinking.
Robert E. Lee says that the Confederacy would be nothing without the black-eyed pea.
Yeah.
His favorite food is fried chicken. There are these constant references among the luminaries of the South to just how much they depend upon that cultural heritage. You know, we like to say, you know, in our interpretation, some folks have no problem, you know, hating on you, but they also have no problem eating your food.
Right.
And that's why I wrote a book that says you got to trace that collard green narrative and that black-eyed pea and that sweet potato narrative and that barbecue narrative and that fried chicken narrative back, so we understand why people's emotions get so bent out of shape.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I think that because people enjoy food, they want to see it as apolitical, and it's difficult for them to sort of like make that
an escape.
Yeah, exactly.
Because food is always political, and food is always personal. It's not as simple as, oh, yummy, this food tastes good. We're all connected. We all have made our contributions. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Race and social justice and immigration. We have to address these issues, and people are just like, well, go back to barbecue and fried chicken. If we celebrate the food, if we ignore the problems, then we'll just get over it. We'll just stick with what everybody has in common. But no, if my community makes some of the best of X, Y, and Z food, but doesn't have the businesses that employ other people in my community, that doesn't pass down generational wealth in my community, then no, we ain't on an even playing field.
How do we sort of bridge that gap where people don't really understand the connection at all between food and justice, right? Or what that even means?
I think it's important for people to educate themselves.
Yeah.
It's about learning, it's about asking people questions. People literally have to sit down with their friends, family, coworkers, and say, I want to understand this. Why do you get mad when white people make this food? Like, what does this food mean to you? You know, people become uncomfortable with, you know, reinforcing their own prejudices and issues when they've come to truth moment within themselves. When you really interface with somebody, you understand something on their terms, people stop being, you know, casually prejudiced, and they start becoming advocates. It may not change them, you know, in a massive way, but just a little bit is what it might take for them to do more good in the world.
Right. You have this line in the book that I really loved, that food is my flag. Can you explain what that means to you?
It means that, you know, your plate that's passed down to you, that's really the crux of who you are.
Right.
What you grew up with. Like when you were growing up, what if you were to say what Jessica's soul food was?
Yeah.
What would it be?
Meatballs.
Meatballs, okay.
Come on.
Right, okay. So meatballs, something that, okay, your family came from?
Sicily.
Sicily. So let's break this down for a second.
Yeah.
And I've told my Italian friends versus my Italian American friends, one of them didn't understand. He was like, he came, you know, to visit America. And he was like, what the hell is this Sunday gravy stuff about?
It's
what
such an Italian-American thing. It's true.
It's like, yeah, it's
Sunday
very Italian-American. And it's there because in Sicily, people don't have no damn meatballs all the time. But in America,
yeah,
the grandmother, the family could put their resources together and once a week, sit everybody down to the table with this, throw every meat at it possible, get the meatballs, and have a wonderful meal together as a family because you were celebrating the fact that now you were in America. And you could truly be Italian and American. And that meant something.
Yeah.
And so I think that's your soul food.
For us, right, like the meatballs and Sunday sauce, you're sort of like, oh, that's like a diluted Italian American thing. That's not like real
It's
Italian.
its own thing.
Right, it's its own thing with its own story and history and value and meaning.
So, it's fascinating to see people come to Colonial Williamsburg or come to another historic site where I'm interpreting, and you learn that people grew up in Savannah their whole life, not knowing about the African impact of their food. And I don't look down on them. I look down on our educational system and the way we've talked about food in food media. That sort of just, until recently, has pretty much obfuscated the role of people of color in shaping the American palate.
Can you just explain what you do here at Colonial Williamsburg?
So my role at Colonial Williamsburg is to interpret early African American and African foodways as relates to the colonial South. It's important for people to come to places like the Randolph Kitchen and see me and other interpreters bring to life the moment Southern food was created.
Yeah.
To understand that those British foodways, influenced by Native American ingredients and African traditions and techniques, that's how Southern food happened. Until African American interpreters started making an appearance on the scene, our stories were not told the way we wanted them to be told. And you could, until recently, you could write a book about American food that will have that one paragraph about in the slaves brought from Africa okra, black-eyed peas, watermelon, and rice. And they think because they wrote that paragraph in there,
It's all
good. They've covered their bases. And of course, these slaves have no names. That's why it was important for me to tell you, yes, I know this person was in my bloodline and they were the big house cook. Yes, this person's in my bloodline and they were a domestic servant. And one of the reasons why I talk about being related to white Southerners in the cooking gene, we talk about people being suppressed in terms of the vote. When you talk about police overreach, you're talking about your family.
Right.
And you share not only food with them, but blood and genes. Shouldn't you use that as a platform for greater understanding and greater empathy?
Women of all sizes. They're so aggressively and so ubiquitously policed. And, food is so